Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to a session on Why iPad. This is a session we ran live yesterday with EANI, and I forgot to record the meeting. So I'm just going to walk through this again because it was a great session yesterday and I'm happy to do that. So we wanted to have a look at Why iPad for our learning and teaching and explore a little bit around the world of why we would use an iPad. What if we've only got one iPad in the classroom? What are the key features that will bring benefit to learners and to teachers and to communities? And so we'll just walk through this, and hopefully by the end of it you'll have a rich idea about the art of the possible, perhaps the need for making steps like this for learning and teaching, and then some things maybe you didn't know before. So let's just give it a go. I wanted to just outline my own feelings on iPad and technology in general, and it's really that devices don't teach children, teachers teach children. We must keep that at the heart of what we're doing with any technological project, because the device itself, whilst absolutely mind-blowing and fantastic, really becomes a rich tool when teachers are empowered and well supported and well trained to use it, because they're the critical part of what's going on in the classroom, the teacher. And as one of the gentlemen I follow on Twitter said, technology will not replace great teachers. I was lucky enough as a young man to have some excellent teachers who really made a big difference into my trajectory in life. And those teachers will always be great teachers, and they were great teachers before technology came along. They just knew about relationships, and they knew how to deliver knowledge and work with young people. But technology in the hands of those great teachers really can be transformational, and you will see some of those opportunities in the next little while. So just to introduce myself, my name is Michael Conlon. I'm a transformation consultant for XMA. I'm also a Apple Professional Learning Specialist. My background is actually started in secondary education when I was Principal Teacher of Computing Science, and then I moved on to be a Deputy Head Teacher, and then I moved to be a Quality Improvement Officer at the Centre before working nationally as a Digital Learning and Teaching Officer for Education Scotland, and then I returned back to local authority work with Perth and Ross Council for their digital strategy, and also with Glasgow City Council as part of their progress with their connected learning strategy, which is over 50,000 iPads deployed across the city. So let's start with one iPad in the classroom. So I've got one iPad. What difference could it make? Now, there happens to be tons and tons of stuff we can do with just one iPad, but I thought I'd focus on just a few, just to give you a flavour of what was achievable. So I like to start off with a camera, because it's the most kind of subdued element of the device. It's hidden away, it's nice, and not very showy, but what it does, what power it brings you in the classroom is absolutely phenomenal. And that's a front camera and a back camera. Great resolution tied to a great processor, giving you real flexibility of what you can achieve in the classroom. I'm going to show you a few of those things here. Let's just check out the first of them. The first of them is really just about using the camera in. So one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to look at something called markup, and that's when you've taken a picture using an iPad, and then we get to edit it in lots of different ways with different filters and stuff. But what I want to do is do a typical markup of a picture that you would kind of exercise you would normally do in class, and see how easy it is to do it on a device. So I've got a nice simple palette tool set there within the markup options, different pens, erasers, etc. I can choose the thickness of the pen or the colour and the opacity of the pen. I can go to my colour wheel and choose a particular colour to help me decide what I want to mark up this picture with. And now that I've got my colour and I've got my picture, I can start to mark up with a pen or a finger or a stencil, a stylus, and begin to mark up what's on that image. If I don't like the colour of my writing, for example, I could go back to my colour wheel and choose a different colour for a different piece of the markup that I want to do. And this is something you'll ask children to do as well, isn't it? To show their learning. Go mark that up and show me what you know. That's a kind of typical exercise we see in lots of different lessons across the piece. I'll change back to white, make sure this is white for this. So just simply get a pencil, marking up, labelling the things that I want, and then I could share that picture with the kids if it's marked up, or I could do this live in the classroom as we're looking at an image and it's displayed on the big screen. We see that we can just push that little toolkit away to get some more space on the screen and then just mark it up as possible. That's the expansion slots there. So that pops back out again, and we can see there's some other features here. One of them, which is a magnifier, and it just means you can move a little magnifier over a particular area of that image and pull it out and expand it so as it really pops out in terms of what you're trying to explain around that picture. So a really straightforward little tool. You've taken a picture using the camera, you bring it out into your pictures, and then you mark it up to explain what's going on in that picture. You could hand your iPad to students and say, go and mark that up and show me what you know. And lots of the things we do with an iPad are all about ways in which you can explain to young people what's going on, or they can show you what they know. That's a very typical way we use iPad in the classroom. This is another example of a teacher in class using his iPad, and he's also got it connected to his Apple TV, which is connected to his either a projector or a large smart board or just a normal television actually, and it allows the iPad to communicate and be displayed on that larger screen. So let's just have a look. So he's going to get his Apple TV connected up to his screen, and if we turn, we'll see that what's on his iPad is what will appear on the screen there. Now if he opens up his camera, then anything he films will appear on that television screen. So here he's getting up close to an object, but the rest of the class can see it on the larger screen. Of course, kids obviously like to wave whenever they're on film, and they always enjoy that. But when I think back on the number of science lessons I was in when I was a wee guy, so all that gather round the table stuff and watch this experiment, that's challenging when you can't see the whole of the experiment, and then the experiment's over and you don't know what happened, and you have to ask a friend, what went on there? If you do this kind of exercise where you're using the camera on the iPad as a visualizer, it means more of the class can see what's going on. They can get up closer in the same way that you as a teacher can get up close. And that's incredibly powerful. And then when you add the ability to capture that and record what it is you're filming as you're filming it, it means there's an asset there at the end of it, a little video clip that students can watch again and again and again to reinforce their learning, to go back over, to review back in 2 months' time. They'll have that asset available to them, and you've given them that as a teacher. And even though they didn't see all of it because they were standing at the back and couldn't squeeze in, there's a chance for them to review that. If you were off that week, you can go back in and see exactly what went on. Here's another example of me using the camera. I'm using something called a slow-mo feature of the camera. And in this particular instance, I'm doing a little experiment. And the experiment starts with a hypothesis. The hypothesis is, that's hard to say, is that if we let that slinky dangle just hanging from the top to the bottom, keep it still, when we let go at the top, the bottom of the slinky will not begin to fall until the top has reached it. That's my hypothesis. And you can decide in the audience now whether you think that's true or not, whether you think that's going to happen or not. But let's watch the video back that I've created using the slow-mo camera. And again, the camera is allowing us the opportunity to see the world in new ways. And it really encourages curiosity in young people to slow processes down, capture things which were too quick. And that could be within sports, within science, you name it. Let's have a look at this video anyway. So she's got it dangling. Oh, there we go. And it has fallen. And we saw in that what was happening was that it just stood still until the top reached the bottom. Who knew? So using the camera to film and capture things, students are very, very visually oriented these days. They really respond to things like YouTube and your Vimeos, and that's where they go to for their interests, their hobbies. And many of your students maybe will have their own YouTube channels of some description. That's entirely possible. So that was just some simple things with the camera in terms of filming and creating assets that can be looked at again and can be passed to other classes or whatever you want to do with them. And especially useful during a blended learning situation where kids can now have those assets at home for them to use. If you want to go a step further, maybe you want to try something like this. It's called Green Screen, and you maybe heard about Green Screen before. I think it's a really simple app. You can do this in about £2, £2.50, £2.99, something like that. And you don't even need to use this fabric this person's got set up for their class. You can just do it with freeze paper, and some places I've done it just with paint, to be honest with you, on the wall. And so you set that up and you use the app, and what the app allows you to do is to put into that green space a background or a foreground that the young people become immersed in when they're also in the scene. So you can see at the bottom of that iPad there, you can see there's the video of the young people sitting at a desk and green screen, and then there's that overlay that just pushes and feeds both of those things together and can create a really immersive experience for the young people in terms of what they're trying to achieve. It's a bit more real world engagement, which is one of the things we focus on at Apple, with Apple products here at XMA. So real world engagement allows young people to do things which are relevant, meaningful, engaging to them. This feels real, authentic and engaging. Once we've got this video made, it can go out into the world. It can go on our school website. It could go onto YouTube and places like that to be shared. And that usually means kids want to give it an extra bit of polish. They realise they're creating an asset which has got a real world audience. And audiences is critically important to students when they know who it's going to be. Let's look at an example of students who did this.
Hello and welcome to the Manchester United Stadium. This is where the players sit if they are substitutes. The players train at the Cliff Training Ground. About 75,000 people can fit in this stadium. I've been to Old Trafford and it is very big.
So there we go. They've had to create an article or create a piece to screen, and it allows them to do that, and they get to practice it, and they get to go in a wee corner and film themselves, and they're not doing that presentation in front of the whole class, and that can be quite frightening for a lot of students. And the journey to being able to present in front of the whole class starts with things like this. Sit with trusted friends, maybe recording yourself speaking. If you don't like it, you can do it again. And again, it's a real world authentic task. They just happen to have a still image behind them, but you can use that app to have video playing behind them. So we've seen lots of weather reports, news reports, history reports being done using green screen. There's not really a curricular area I've never seen it being used in. It can be used for so many opportunities, and it really is the limit of your students and yourselves which will make a difference. So here we have an example of that camera technology allowing us to do something completely different. Young people have had to plan their presentation, so they're developing those skills and planning, then they film, record, edit. Those are all real life working skills that are going to be of real value for young students in developing their confidence and skill set. Okay, here's another example. Let's think about other ways of using my iPad if I've only got one of them. I'm particularly keen on the benefits it brings to teachers themselves in terms of learning and teaching. You know, how can I save some time in the kind of things that I do? So one of the things I encourage people to use is, don't write reports anymore. I'm a two-finger typist. I'm very, very slow, but I can use my dictation tool on iPad to say, one of the things I would recommend that staff spend more time doing is to use dictation for report writing, full stop. I don't write reports anymore. I simply just talk into the screen, which feels much more natural, full stop. There we go. So I've just used dictation to do that piece of writing. It's much quicker than my two fingers. And of course, I'm going to have to edit it and maybe change a couple of bits once I reread it. But you do that when you type anyway, don't you? You write out a big paragraph, then you look back over it, and then you change the bits you don't like, including the spelling mistakes. But what we found when teachers used this, they found that it's really saved them quite a significant chunk of time, especially, as I say, with report writing or just getting content into a document. And we want to be able to save ourselves time, don't we? We should leverage technology to be able to do that. But also think of the kind of learners that you have, learners who are slow writers, learners who are slow typers even. And this is a great accessibility feature, actually. If you want to be able to get what I know from my head to the page, if writing by hand is going to take me forever and I kick off because it's taking me too long, then maybe dictation is the way to go for some of your students. really helps build their confidence too, we've found. Okay, now let's maybe take it a step further. Using the iPad, you've only got one iPad in the classroom. Lots of schools we've seen, and certainly in Scotland and other places, are beginning to look away from interactivity being on the board and more towards interactivity being on the device that they're holding. So all the touch screen, the handwriting stuff all happens on the device rather than on the big screen board there. And this is a perfect example of this. This is an app called Explain Everything. And Explain Everything allows me to have an endless whiteboard available to me. So if I tap on a blank canvas, I get exactly that. I get a blank canvas with a whole squad of tools down the left hand side to allow me to draw onto that canvas. It'll allow me to add pictures from websites. It'll allow me to have highlighters, different pens. I can drop in pictures, videos, as I said, files. It could be PDFs or drop in to the screen. Really powerful. In fact, I can add on a video of myself. Hello. If I want to. And then what you'll see is I'll be able to choose a pen, write, but also record as I'm delivering this lesson or recording this or going through the lesson. I can record the whole thing. Here we go. So let's start. So finally we're looking at, and if we look at our column values 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, if you remember, if I put a 1 or a 0 underneath it, this will indicate the binary pattern. But to figure out what that decimal number is, what we're going to have to do is to multiply these out wherever we see a 1. So that means you've got 16 plus 4 plus 1 equals 21. And the thing I want you to remember most of all about it is that this is the multiplying out part. Okay, whenever we see a 1, we multiply it out and then we add them back together again. Okay. So now I've got a recorded sequence of me teaching that particular part of a course, and I can edit that video within the app itself too. Let's just watch it back. So finally we're looking at, and if we look at our column values 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. So let's think about that then. I've just recorded a video of me doing something, of me teaching something, and because it's a video, it then becomes an asset, doesn't it? It becomes an asset I can pass to children. I can put it on the school website for revision, for looking back over again. Incredibly powerful, and you can teach your whole lesson that way. It is, you can use it as a PowerPoint substitute and just record it as you're teaching it. Exceptionally powerful for blended learning and home learning, and for me, especially for students to revisit their learning and to revisit their understanding. And you in the classroom, if, oh, Mr. Conner, I was off, how do you do that binary stuff again? Right, there's the iPad, go to that file there and watch it back, and then you can move on and deal with other students. So I would encourage people to use a tool like this to record some content that builds a set of assets that can be used again for students, and not just used again this term, but for next year too. I mean, binary is binary in my course, you know, that is what it is in computing science. And if I taught it successfully using this process, hopefully a bit prettier than that, you know, I can set the pages up previously with the right pictures and the way you would do with a PowerPoint, set it up properly, and then just add in the content that you want. So again, another step you could take with one iPad in the classroom to empower the kind of things you want to do. Then you might want to look at another app. So there's lots of apps out there on the store. So you then might want to look at an application that you would want to use. And one of my favourites is Google Earth. You can hook this up to your large screen projector. You can show young people how to explore the world in a whole host of different ways. Really fantastic application, used across the curriculum in so many different ways. I'm going to show you a couple of ways we can do that. So let's just explore a part of the world and go to the Grand Canyon National Park. It's not the kind of place I'm ever going to get to go to, like most parts of the world, but it doesn't stop me being curious about the place and what it looks like and things like that. And this technology, with the touchscreen facility to just switch around and go into 3D like this, And I always find that amazing. The topographical data and immersiveness you can get with an application like that is just unbelievable. And I can follow the Colorado River, go down to the Phantom Ranger Station, and just really see how this was carved out of the earth in a way that's impossible to do any other way apart from visiting it. So, excuse me, let's go then to Belfast, at the other side of the world. And a place I've always wanted to visit. And on the right hand side, you can see it gives me different places of interest I can go and visit in this particular place. So Belfast, I've always desperately wanted to go and see the Titanic Belfast exhibition. Not managed it yet. I'll get there eventually. I've always been a huge fan of that part of history. And again, we're in 3D again. I know there's been probably more additions been added to that space, but it is a way of exploring a place maybe you're never going to get to, and then maybe thinking about it in a different way. How can I use this technology, for example, in numeracy? So one of the nice features we've got is a measurement tool within Google Earth. Yes, it's true. Apart from all these amazing views of what the world looks like and the ability to zoom in and out, we've got a measurement tool, and I'm going to use that here just to measure the size of this dock, just to see exactly what it's like. So I'll grab hold of my measurement tool, and I'll start with the first point that I want to measure from. And as you can see, it just draws across. I've got 87.7 metres, pardon me, then pull all the way down to the bottom, and you can see it's starting to build up the perimeter distance of this particular space on planet Earth. And you can do this anywhere on Earth, right? I used to do it a lot with George Square in Glasgow. It's really nice shape, nice square shape, but you can have distance between 2 points as you travel. So what have I got? I've got the perimeter there, I've got the area, and then I can start using that to talk about different things, like, well, how many football pitches could fit into that. If the height of that dock was 2 metres, what would be the overall volume of that space? What Google have done with this app is also added some of these Voyager expeditions on, where you can just tour based on particular themes. This one just happens to be, bizarrely, cherry blossoms around the world, and you can go and visit some of the most popular and famous cherry blossom spaces around the world. So let's go to Magura River Cherry Blossoms Promenade, and it drops you straight into an immersive 360 degree Google Street View of what this place looks like. So if you're talking about a place, Google Earth not only takes you to an overview of the space, but then you can jump down straight into Street View to get an even closer look at it rather than a satellite view. Really immersive. And then you can start using this as a conversation starter for a piece of writing, for example, or exploration of a culture. And one of my colleagues, who's a PE teacher, who decided to want to do football stadiums of the world, and it gives students an understanding of what the world looks like. They had to plan and travel to get to a fictitious sporting competition by visiting lots of different stadiums. They weren't allowed to use flights. What they were only allowed to do was to travel by train. So then they had to go and extend their knowledge by looking at train timetables and planning a journey from one football stadium to the next to complete the Champions League format they were having. So you can really, you'll not be using this all period, for the whole day, for example. So this could just be the start of a conversation that leads on to other learning. And we see iPad being used like that a lot. It forms a part of the lesson, but it's not the lesson. And one of the things we want to encourage practitioners to think about is, I might show you lots of shiny, nice things and amazing things an iPad can do, but we always return back to, where is the learning? What learning happened? How did this form part of the learning objectives that I had? And that's an art in itself, and that's why we want to spend a lot more time developing pedagogy and working with teachers to develop not only a sense of what the iPad can do and then how you do it, but also when to do it. That's the journey we need to go on, isn't it? So I wanted to pause and just have a chat about accessibility here, just because we've just looked at some things you can do with just one iPad in the classroom. I'm also really interested in accessibility as a sort of, I guess it's a moral imperative really, isn't it? If we can leverage technology to support young people and meeting their needs, we absolutely have to. I know that in my situation across Scotland, we do have increasing numbers of young people with recognised additional support needs, everything from dyslexia right through to complex motor physical challenges, but not necessarily the financial support to meet those needs. So one of the things that technology can do for young people is to empower them with solutions that they can manage and that they're in control of to meet their needs. And when I show you some of the things I'm just about to show you, I want you also to think about the wider universal support that these solutions provide you with. So holding on to that thought, let's do something really straightforward. So I'm in my iPad. I have a range of different settings from accessibility. So there's a whole new menu for accessibility now that cover vision, physical and motor skills, hearing challenges, and a few others. I'm going to focus just on one of them, the spoken content features. I've got speak selection and speak screen set up here. I can change the speaking rate when the device talks back to me. I can change the voices that are used. I've got the lovely Moira enhanced up there as the voice I'm using. I do have her normally, it's not for just because of today. And then there's other nice features like typing feedback. So if you've got English as additional language, as you're typing, once you press the space, you can get the iPad to speak back the word you think you've just typed. And that's incredibly helpful. So now that we know that we've got this feature available, let me jump to a web page, for example, and I'm going to highlight some text and I'm going to get the device to speak it out to me.
Discover a collection of expert how-to videos, apps and books for working and learning at home.
And then if I jump to even a solution which is on a foreign language website, let me just highlight that.
Je sais des films, 10 longs métrages sur le monde du tennis pour attendre Roland Garros.
There's really nice inflections and patterns in the voice there for the French page, but let's think about the implications of that. Let's think about that student who, when you say, can you please read pages 20 and 21 and then answer the questions on page 22, if they've got a real reading challenge, then the very concept of that can be enough to throw them off and for the wheels to come off the bus and for that to be a real frustration for them. Whereas if they're empowered with technology which allows them to bypass that particular struggle, we absolutely should leverage that, shouldn't we? We're not saying that we should never challenge the students to continue to learn to read at pace, but when our focus, when the learning objective is making sure that child can show me what they know about the pages they've just read, let's give them options in terms of how they get access to that content and read that content, and we can do it with speak selection. Now we can do that for students with that particular challenge, but we can also do it universally. That's a great feature for me. If I'm wanting to have something read out to me, will I do something else? Whether I'm baking a cake or doesn't matter what I'm doing. The fact I can have content read out to me really empowers me and makes my day a bit more flexible for me. So that's just one feature. There's a whole load of other features. For example, we've got some filters, colour filters and overlays. You'll be aware of some students who have to carry maybe clear perspex overlays for reading print, and for some students that is that's something they feel uncomfortable having to carry with them. Whereas in a personalised device, what you get with a device like an iPad is you get those filters to overlay on the technology as you're using it. And even if I was to connect that child's device up to a projector, then what will appear on the screen is just a normal view of that content, because the preferences and the colour tints that are there only appear on the child's device. It's personal to them. So a young person can set up the device so that it has all of the accommodations in place to allow them to access learning, and that's exactly as it should be. What Apple has done since the very beginning with an iPad is, from the ground up, thought deeply about accessibility to the point now where you can control and access the device despite the many physical challenges that you may well have. I was lucky enough to watch a young woman be on stage, and she made a movie, an iMovie, with titles and with a soundtrack and voiceover, and it combined video and pictures which she took whilst we were in the auditorium, and she was completely blind. And when we spoke to her about it afterwards, she was saying, well, it's just because I want to do the things that my friends are doing. If I'm on holiday, I want to take pictures and share them with people about the things I've been doing and the great fun I've been having. Well, why wouldn't you? I want to be able to use WhatsApp and all the rest of it for connecting with friends. And when we get technology that can do that for people, it's a great equaliser, isn't it? It's saying that everyone has the opportunity to communicate. Everyone has a chance to tell their story. And that's what we want to be able to achieve when we introduce this into the classroom. Here's a perfect example of this.
Wake up. Voice control is a breakthrough feature that gives you full control of your devices, with just your voice, period. It's a whole new way to do everything you love, period. Like this. Correct love. 16. Open photos. Scroll up. Show numbers. 13. Click share. 3. Tim. Next field. Let's try this one today. Thumbs up emoji. Click send. Open maps. Show grid. Long press at 20. Open app switcher. 4. Tap share. Tap Tim. Tap send. Hey, good to see you. Open music. Turn up the volume. All right.
And that kind of voice control exists across the estate with your Mac and your iPhone and your iPad. So it's built in across all platforms. And why wouldn't you want that to be available for people? I think accessibility for me is a real, there's a moral imperative to make sure that we try and empower as many people as we can with the technology that we have in front of us. Moving on to communication and collaboration then, certainly we all have our own favourite productivity suites across iPad and Microsoft and Google. In the blended learning environments we've been working with, these kind of technologies like Teams and Google Meet and Zoom and Cisco WebEx, etc., they all work on that platform. So we're extremely confident that whatever kind of face-to-face meetings you want online, they can all happen on an iPad. But similarly, Apple themselves have got their own ecosystem around Keynote and Pages and Numbers, which can all be collaborative documents that you work with in the cloud, as well as some extra features we'll show you in just a wee while. Then there's GarageBand and iMovie, which are peerless tools for creativity that we can explore a little bit later. Alongside that, though, the Google applications and the Microsoft Office 365 applications work seamlessly on an iPad. So if you're used to using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams, those platforms still exist on that device. It really is a one-stop shop for everything you're trying to achieve. It's a device which covers all three platforms just in one box, with that essential touch sensitivity and interface which people know and love. So you should have some confidence there that there's a platform for you which will give it added benefit if you choose this technology. Then a big favourite of mine, creativity. We, as teachers, as leaders of learning, we want to develop the whole individual, don't we? We want to build capacity, not just to pass exams, but for them to explore their inner and outer selves. That's really important that we give them that gift. And I know that some schools have challenges in and around arts provisions, music provisions, all those sorts of things. And we want to be able to, again, use technology in a way that will supplement the stuff that's going on in school, or maybe take it down into new avenues. Because creativity, if you look at lots of major industry and think tanks around the world, talk about creativity has been such a critical thing for the kind of work of the future. And that includes the kind of problem-solving skills you develop when you engage in creative exercises, things like divergent thinking, how creative aspects enhance that skill and ability, which you can track through research if you wish. So Apple provide this entire curriculum on creativity called Everyone Can Create. It covers drawing, music, photo, video. And you can engage with these textbooks, which are all free, which come with some amazing content to help you as a teacher and the learner explore and develop skills. And it's not just about, let's use an iPad to have fun, and you do have fun with this, honestly, you'll have a great time, but it is focused on skills. So this drawing book, for example, focuses on developing drawing skills, using the iPad as a prism to develop that. So we are learning things about scale and proportion, and how your eyes are actually halfway down the page. Here's how to build that image up using a tracing technique. So you're learning real skills in that field. Similarly, when we go into photo, you do the same with the rule of thirds and stuff like that. I've done a complete exercise in this music book in and around using loops and the concepts of things like tempo. So it uses a language, it gives you the skills, and you're using the iPad to be curious about those skills. I've done a piece of work. You can tell me what you think of it. Here it is now for you to listen to. Fantastic. I'm available for bookings anytime you like. I had a huge amount of fun with this. And wouldn't you rather your students were having fun and exploring and creating, rather than spending time in front of devices consuming, which is a completely passive experience and one which doesn't really enrich you apart from you enjoying the content. Being creative takes you out of yourself, and especially in a lockdown environment, we need to help young people escape from that lockdown feeling, and creativity and engaging in exercise like this is really important. I know that when I was younger, I wanted to learn how to play piano, and I was told I couldn't learn to play piano because, well, you don't have a piano for the first point. I was from a family of 8, we didn't have a piano, but that creative urge for me was dampened down because I didn't have access to the tools. There was a divide between those that have and those that don't, and I was one of the ones that didn't. So that held me back in terms of me exploring that creative side of myself. Now, of course, an iPad's not going to teach you how to play piano, but what it's going to allow you to do is allow you to explore and noodle and play around with that creative urge that you have in order to be able to play things. So really, really worthwhile toolkit within the Apple series of books. And I really think everyone should take a chance to explore those, even if it's just for yourself as a professional, to spend some time with your own creativity and looking after your own self and your own mental health and well-being. Coding is, I've got to pull my hands up here, I'm a computing scientist by trade back in the day when I started teaching, and so coding's fundamental to where I think the future is, and letting your children understand how the world is being built, how their world is being built. They're understanding what a database is, that it powers Facebook and WordPress and all these other sorts of things. How you can develop coding for robotics, like you'll see in the background picture there with Sphero. Again, Apple have very kindly put together an entire curriculum based on coding, and really, really powerful, really kind of upper primary through to right through to the end of the senior phase of schooling, where you can get real deep experience with a language called Swift, which is the language that they use to develop apps for devices like your iPad, right through to learning things like Xcode. All of that is there within the textbooks that you'll find here, including teachers' guides. There are some older books for early learning, getting started with Code 1 and 2. Those books are really, really nice. Really nice 3D, immersive, engaging environments for coding. Have a look at those. I think they're worthwhile exploring for that whole curriculum element. They're tied to national curriculums. They've done an awful lot of good work in that area. You can tie it up with other applications like Tinker and CodeSpark, and of course Scratch 3, which is available through the browser. All really worthwhile tools for engaging with the coding curriculum. I then want to talk about critical thinking, because as practitioners, we can see the things that you can do in an iPad and they're all amazing and wow, etc. But how does it tie back to what our understanding of pedagogy is, what our understanding of how learning happens? Again, this is another series of books that are available on the Apple Bookstore to support leadership and leaders of learning, that's teachers, of course, about elements of leadership and integrating iPad into that space. Research for educators, so it's research you can do within your classroom with the iPad that will inform your understanding about iPads, innovation in schools, and then one of my favourites, which is elements of learning, which really wants to focus on and look at what are the kind of skills we want our young people to have in any part of a curriculum. So these are skills: teamwork, communication and creation, personalisation of learning, critical thinking and real world engagement. These are things we do in lessons all the time and have done for many a good long year before an iPad was ever invented. What this tries to extrapolate is using the research that's out there about what 21st century learning skills are going to be. How can the iPad transform, move on and elevate these components and elements of learning? So how does an iPad allow us to develop the kind of teamwork skills we know that are going to help our young people be work ready for the next century? How does it do that? How important is real world engagement? What is it about an iPad that will let young people create content and assets and responses which can be shared with the world, that are authentic and meaningful and relevant? Well, this book does all of this. It really helps you develop your understanding about what those components are. So critical thinking, what does it actually look like? Is it about students being able to apply the knowledge they've gained but in new and unknown situations? And that allows them to build and use technology to do things like synthesis, for example. So bringing content from different areas, whether it's Safari and the research they do there, to books that are in the bookstore, to content and assets they've created themselves, to using content from apps like Google Earth, for example, pulling it all together to develop an evaluation and a response to a stimulus. All of that is there in the book. Really, really worthwhile reading. But what I really wanted to get across was a sense that this isn't a plaything. This is a deeply thought about learning device and how it can impact what we do in the classroom to support the things we've always done, but just do them and elevate them and deepen them in a different way. Then there's productivity and workload and workflow. As an ex-teacher and deputy head teacher, I'm always really interested in the workload issue, and many teachers have come to me and said, well, if I give them all iPads in the classroom, it's going to be bedlam. They'll all be watching things they're not supposed to watch and doing all sorts of things. Well, no, that's not the case, because at Apple and the XMA and other people we work with, we can manage all that, and this is the lovely example of a tool being used, created by Apple, that understands teachers and understands the teaching process. So let's just have a watch. It's looking at something called Apple Classroom. It's when you, as a teacher on your device, can see and manage every other device in your classroom. So it's really easy to set up to get the kids to join into your classroom. They'll all appear here. So now I can see every student's device. That's really powerful. I can see what apps they're currently using and exactly what they're doing from my device. I get the option, if I want to share with them a file, rather than handing out bits of paper around the class, I can just drag and drop a file and it'll pop up on every single student's device for them to access, cutting down that handing out bits of paper time. Or it could be a website. I can just drag across the web address onto my class. It will open up that website on everybody's device. There's not people making mistakes with typing in the address. I just move straight onto the learning. Similarly, I can open up a particular app on the device and I can keep the students locked into that app so they can't come out of it. So I'm directing the learning. I'm directing what resources they use and when they use them on the device that I've given to them. You can get even closer still. You can look at each student's screen and then get in a bit closer. How is Aubrey getting on with this exercise? I'm going to watch Aubrey for a while and see what she's doing so that I can go and support at the right time. Utilising Apple TV, as we saw earlier, you can display students' content up onto the larger screen for some peer support and peer critical thinking, peer assessment. and sharing the work that's going on in the class and celebrating that's really, really powerful for young people and presenting their own stuff. Then you get the option to lock everybody's iPad, and everybody loves this, that whatever they're doing, boom, I've locked your iPad and you're now listening to me because I'm the leader of learning. At the end of the day, everyone can see a student, what have they been working on, how have they spent their time in class, has it been productive. What a powerful suite of features that really is providing us with that one app, Apple Classroom. I know lots of teachers, when they see that, it gives them a lot more confidence about being able to use that with an entire class and still being able to lead the learning, because I don't expect the iPad to be open for all 60 minutes of someone's lesson. It's much more interesting for students actually if they're using multimodal approaches. So, I remember somebody saying to me, well, I'll get rid of textbooks. Well, no, not necessarily, no, because you in your own life don't just use a device. My own life, I don't just use the iPad, I use textbooks and my phone and newspapers, and multimodal approaches to gathering information is a skill we want for our students to be able to do. In terms of looking at that at the possible, you've already seen some of the possible things that are there, and they're utterly amazing. There's some other apps which I'm a big fan of. This is obviously one of them. It's Google Arts and Culture. We can't take kids out on field trips at the moment, but what we can do from within that device, we can start exploring the world in a whole new different way. Why, let's go to one of the 2,000 museums around the world that this particular app provides us the opportunity to do so. So you can go to the Van Gogh Museum, you can go to the Museum of Modern Art. I'm going to take you to a place that's got one of my most favourite paintings in the world. It's called Girl with a Pearl Earring, and it's Mauritshuis Museum in the Netherlands. And so I go straight to this museum. It's got guided spoken tours I can walk and listen into, hearing about how the painting happened, etc. Or I can just jump straight into the painting and then I can look up close. And when I talk about close, I'm talking about high definition, close into this painting in ways that would be impossible in the real world. Checking each brush stroke. How was this composed, this particular image? So for example, in the earring is actually only 2 strokes of paint, 2 strokes of white paint, and our brains do the rest of the work to turn it into an earring, which absolutely fascinates me. And there's a whole story about how that was created. I can jump into Street View and actually go into the museum itself, and I can see exactly, I'm not getting that close to the painting in the way that we've just done. I have to stand behind a barrier. But because it's Street View, I can maybe just take a walk around this museum. I mean, I'm probably never going to get there in my life, but I can virtually go there and see other objects like that, or jump to another painting, get in close to it, pull back, see where it sits in the museum, and that gives me a sense of its scale, doesn't it? And really develop my understanding and have an experience that, I probably would never be able to get to that museum. But the technology in the app allows me to do that, which I think is just unbelievable. There's some really cute features like this. So the little art features we've got on here. So classic artworks, take a picture of myself. Hello, there I am. And I'm going to transform it using a particular art style. Now again, this is, fascinating to see what it does. It turns my face into the style of Edvard Munch and the Scream. Isn't that a great bit of fun? But remember what I spoke about earlier about how, where's the learning? At this particular point, I would say, well, this is just the start of maybe a conversation. It could be a start of a conversation about mental health. Let's all create our own picture. Or it could be a stimulus for writing. Or it could be a stimulus for a movie we're making about something else. It's maybe a jump-off point. That's not the learning. That's an experience you give them in the classroom that will inform some of the learning objectives you've got later on down the line. So this could be, as I said, a stimulus for writing. Students produce that, it takes them 40 seconds, and then the iPad's put away, that bit's done, and then they can work on the next piece. So really think carefully again about how we integrate some of these amazing features in there. This is an application called Expeditions, and again it's allowing us to model the world in new ways and give students experiences, in this particular case in augmented reality, which is new and different from the way we would normally model ideas. And the example I'm going to show you is the T-Rex, and this is in my garden. But of course there's on this application there's lots of things in and around science and the earth and viruses and plants and all sorts of things. And I can walk around this object. I can walk 360 degrees around it. My little 5-year-old boy was obviously fascinated by a dinosaur being in his garden. But these are opportunities for young people to view the world in different ways, and for us to develop lessons which incorporate these little slices of interesting new ways of doing things. So you should absolutely take that on board, because the processing power and the fact you have a really amazing camera in the device is what empowers you to come up with new ways of learning and teaching. All of this is nothing without professional learning and developing your pedagogy around in this piece, because I like teachers to take things at a pace which is suitable for them, because you can't do everything in one day. But what you can do is you can start integrating this into your learning and teaching and develop your skills and abilities to support what's happening in the classroom. So again, as I said, there's a whole set of books in and around leadership and innovation in schools. If you're interested in finding about schools which have integrated this technology within their schools over a period of time, we have Apple Distinguished Schools, and every Apple Distinguished School has to submit a textbook free on the Apple Store, which will take you on the journey that school's gone on to become outstanding institutions. Not just distinguished schools, but the kind of places where, Ofsted and Her Majesty's Inspectorate really find really interesting, challenging and exciting work going on that's improving children's lives. So those are all there on the bookstore. Everyone can create curriculum which you can walk through yourself. There's a teacher guide and a teacher guide for early learners. But personally for me, I was just really interested in it being used for me and exploring my own creativity, never mind the kids. There's a coding curriculum as mentioned earlier. Then we've got a kind of peerless professional learning program called Apple Teacher, which any teacher can sign up for and begin the Apple Teacher journey to that accredited certification in the kind of skill sets that show that you've integrated Apple into your learning and teaching. Lovely Apple Teacher Learning Centre with new ideas all the time, badges and skills to develop. And there was a great one there about creativity activities for students over the COVID period. It's a really simple process. You will choose a particular pathway, you learn new skills and applications, and you take a quiz to become an Apple Teacher and get that certification. When teachers talk to us about the Apple Teacher programme, they speak really fondly about their own sense of achievement and the fact that they've become a recognised member of a community which has a particular standard, and that really encourages them to do more and be more in their setting. As XMA, we provide a whole suite of professional learning, and obviously today is just our introduction to ourselves and our knowledge. But what we build in is a really strong and deep professional learning series, starting from foundation level through to innovation level, covering the entire group of stakeholders that we know have an impact on young people's futures, from leadership all the way through to community and in between. We would design with schools and local authorities programmes which really take you on a journey to making the very best use of the iPad based upon strong pedagogical principles, and we'd encourage you to explore that further with us if you wish. We're here to help. You can contact us on this number or get us at the email address you see there, and follow us on any of these Twitter accounts. I'd like to finally just say thank you for spending some time with me and listening to me rabble on. We really hope that we've given you an insight into some of the things you can do with the iPad platform, and really thank you again for your time.